A landmark report has called for state and federal governments to stop spending money on infrastructure in order to free up the construction industry and build more homes. The report suggests that massive infrastructure projects such as the Sydney Metro or Melbourne's North East Link, as well as general plans for schools and hospitals, would need to go on the back burner to meet current housing targets. It comes as federal Labor falls behind on their pledge to deliver 1 million new homes. For their take, let's bring in Housing Minister Claire O'Neil and Shadow Finance Minister Jane Hume. Good morning to both of you. So Claire, if the government is worried about a tradie shortage, why don't you look at telling the states to direct some of the tradies off these big projects, put them on hold for a while like this report suggests, and onto housing plans?
Yeah. Well, firstly, Nat, I think all your viewers at home know that we've got a chronic housing shortage in our country. That's been really the result of decades of governments and industry failing to invest in the housing needs of Australians. So you mentioned off the top there that our government is the first in many decades to really come into this and say the Commonwealth is going to work with the states to try to address this problem by building more homes. Now, that is going to be really challenging. We've got bold and ambitious targets, but we're not going to get anywhere in this really difficult problem unless we be bold and ambitious. The report talks about the fact that a lot of the state governments are facing this really similar mix of problems, which is they've come into office, not enough spending on infrastructure, not enough spending on housing, and we haven't had the investment in skills that we've needed to support all the work that needs to be done. So this is something we're working really hard on at the moment. Some of you viewers at home would remember that we've invested in 500,000 fee-free TAFE places, and then we're adding another 300,000 to that. Lots of those young people will be trained in construction trades we desperately need. Which
is fantastic. But as we know, it takes a while to become a tradie, several years. So in the meantime, is it a good idea, like this guy suggests, putting some of these big infrastructure projects on hold and getting some of the tradies onto houses? What do you think?
Look, I don't think the answer is slowing down much needed infrastructure in our states, and ultimately the state governments do need to balance this complex kind of demand for housing with infrastructure. What I would say is that we need to invest in the capacity of our construction sector, and we've got to support these amazing tradies around the country who are going to build all the homes that we need to get us out of the crisis. And that's the big focus for us, building those skills, investing that. You've seen us do that really consistently over 2 years, and that is going to have an impact on this problem.
So what about now, though? Like right now?
Well, now we need to make sure that we're building more homes across the country, and that's something that I've been talking about with my state colleagues.
Yeah.
Well, some of the things that we need to do, we need to really strongly invest in skills. Some of it will probably involve making sure that we're using the migration system properly, which is bringing in those skills that we desperately need. But we're also putting more money into housing, and that's something that's very different between the approach you see from the Albanese government and Jane and her colleagues, who say that in the middle of a housing crisis, they are going to cut billions of dollars of funding for much needed social and affordable housing. So we're trying to tackle the problem from every angle, build more homes, support renters who are really doing it tough at the moment, and make sure that we help more first home buyers into the market. It's a very comprehensive approach, and people may criticise our government for many things. We have stepped into this housing problem in a really big way, and I think that deserves to be acknowledged.
Jane, Claire is right. This did not happen just in 2 years. So what would you do?
Yes. Claire's right to a point. Getting the balance right between infrastructure and housing is important, and bringing in those skilled migrants is fundamentally important, something that Labor have resisted for years, bringing in skilled migrants with the right trades that we need. But the report that you're referring to, Nat, also pointed to a few other things, getting zoning and planning reforms right as well, working with the states directly to do that, and, of course, lowering interest rates, because as interest rates stay higher for longer, people retreat away from the housing market. That's something that we've heard in my cost of living committee. That's also something that's in this report. Under the former coalition government, there were in fact record levels of both approvals and completions of housings. But unfortunately, the way we've seen the way things have panned out in the last 2 years is that market has dried up. Things need to change. They need to change quickly. The government keeps crowing about how much money it's putting into this, but how many new houses have actually been built and turned the key in the last 2 years? Simply not enough.
Yeah, Claire, are you going to revise your estimate? Because I think you've said 1.2 million by 2029. There are 160,000 new housing commencements last financial year. You're supposed to be 240 a year. I think you're aiming for 180 next year. It's way behind.
Yeah, well, I don't think the answer here, Nat, is for us all to lower our ambitions. That's how we got to where we are today. When we look at what's happened to housing in our country, effectively, for more than 25 years, housing's gotten much more expensive and governments around the country just haven't invested enough and rolled up their sleeves and done much about this problem. And that is changing with the Albanese government, unsurprisingly, because your viewers will know that our Prime Minister, his entire life was changed by his access to affordable housing in his childhood. So we've got a really big, ambitious plan here, but I don't think anyone expects that our government is going to be able to fix what is a 25-year-old problem in our country in the first 2 years in office. We're making big strides.
Housing.
We've got bold ambitions. We've got bold ambitions here. And what I really wish is that instead of all the sort of grizzling that goes on from other parties, that they'd come in and help us with this. Nat, we've got 2 bills that are stuck in the Senate at the moment that will help us address the crisis. Please don't interrupt, Jane. We've got 2 bills in the Senate at the moment that Jane and her colleagues and the Australian Greens are stopping us from moving forward. Bills that will build more housing and help more first homeowners into the market, but they're standing in the path of this to play politics. And my view is we've got to put politics to the side. This is a crisis and we need the political parties to work together on solutions.
Yeah, well, you're right on that. It is a crisis. It has been a long time coming and we do need to sort it out. We'll leave it there. Thank you. See you next week.